how to paint Aurora Borealis Skyline. I'm using an 11-inch by 14-inch canvas, although you can do this on any size. I first marked my horizon line with a piece of painter's tape that was marked about 3 to 4 inches from the bottom of the canvas. I'm first using a 3/4 inch flat brush in the colors titanium white and medium magenta. First, dip your 3/4 inch flat in the titanium white. We're going to apply white to the horizon line. I'm doing the sky from the bottom to the top. A lot of times I do skies from the top to the bottom, but in this case I've chosen to go from the bottom to the top. So applying the white is going to allow that pink to blend and make a lighter pink glow along the horizon line. Load the magenta without rinsing the white. Apply it over the titanium white and watch it blend together. It'll make a light glowing pink color. Essentially, I want my pink to get a little bit darker as I go up, so I'm going to add less white and more pure of the medium magenta. I'm referring to it as pink, but I am implying that it's medium magenta. So it's getting darker as I'm going up the canvas. I'm doing all left and right strokes. And occasionally I'm going to add a little bit more white in there just to get it to blend better. So I have a very light magenta color on the bottom with the white, and then it blended to a pure magenta color. Now I want to make sure that this area up here stays wet, because when we add the cerulean blue, we want it to be wet on wet blending, so we don't want it to be dry yet. Okay, I'm going to load my palette with the cerulean blue. It's still wet. I'm going to grab the cerulean blue on my brush and drag it out a little bit. Apply it to the medium magenta and let it blend. Now we're going from a warm color, that medium magenta, to a more cool color, so it's going to be a little harder to blend. Start out slow when you are blending those two colors together. Don't load your brush with a whole bunch of blue and paint over it and expect it to blend right away. You want to brush over it softly and slowly to let that pink pick up with the blue and blend. So right there where the two colors meet, you want to brush very softly, and then you're going to add more of the cerulean blue as you work your way up, and we're going to go to about halfway up the canvas. Tripping over my words tonight as I do this recording. So this is all the cerulean blue right here, and then again we want to keep this wet as we transition to the next color. So I actually added just another coat of cerulean blue right up here at the top. Blend it down slowly into the magenta if you're going to do that. And I'm going to rinse my brush off to get that magenta and white that might still be on my brush. I'm going to load it with cobalt blue. This is a blue that is slightly darker than the cerulean blue. So with the cobalt blue, I'm going to blend it in with the cerulean blue, and I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up, so there should be like a third left of blank spot on the canvas. Just estimate. All right, so I want to keep that cobalt still wet, and I'm applying Mars Black to the canvas with cobalt still on my brush. Black will take over fast, so you only want to load a little bit of black on your brush and lightly brush over that cobalt blue to get that black to blend. So just like when we transitioned from that pink to that blue, we're going to do the same thing because it's a drastic transition. You want to brush over that area where they meet lightly. So you don't want to load your brush with a lot of black. You want to just kind of get your feet wet and let it adjust slowly. And then of course, as you work your way up, you can have more of the pure black. And then as you work your way kind of down to blend it in, let that blue blend with the black. If you need to load your brush with some more cobalt blue, that is okay. But the very top is going to turn into a pure black. So I'm just making sure that all this canvas is completely covered, smoothing out my strokes a bit. You don't want to go too far down with that black. You don't want to get black into the pink area for sure. So blend it very gently down the blue. And then it's solid at the top. Okay, so next step, we're going to do some splatter stars. And this is just titanium white and a toothbrush. So I always like to dip my toothbrush in the water first, get the white to be an ink consistency, a little thicker than an ink consistency. So I actually loaded my brush with a little too much water, so my white is a little bit drippy. I'm going to kind of show you what not to do. So when your white is too drippy, it drips down fast and you'll get these thicker drips of stars, which is okay, but it might take longer to dry if that happens. If you made your white too watery, just add a little bit more white to your palette and get your brush and just kind of mix it in a little bit to make it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to splatter my stars onto the canvas. I always have a hard time holding back when it comes to splatter painting because I want to cover my entire painting with these splatter stars. So just bear with me here as I get some very huge splatters into the mix. So you need to wait for this to dry. There's not much we can do with the Aurora without it drying. Let's practice how to do these Aurora Borealis style. So this is a 1/4 inch angle brush. You can use a different angle brush. I personally haven't tried it with a larger angle brush. I'd imagine that the technique would be very similar. So if you want to find one that is a 1/4 inch and copy what I'm doing, then that might be more successful if you do it that way versus using the bigger one. But you can try it with the bigger brush. So this is obviously going to be different because it's white paper and not black paper. But we're going to kind of imagine the squiggle lines kind of meet to this point here. And I double loaded my brush in bright aqua green and titanium white. So I dipped it in both those colors. And then I'm using the angle brush to paint this squiggle line. So when you use the angle brush, you want to make sure that you're using the brush on its side. So not the full width, just turn it on the side. Kind of like when you're painting a house, when you use the angle brush to cut in on edges. So you're using it the same way with the point, the top tip of the angle, the opposite direction of what you're painting in. So that produces a thin line, kind of a thin, inconsistent line because it gets thicker and thinner. So I'm going to do this squiggly line. I guess my pressure is kind of changing and altering. Sometimes the pressure is getting a little thicker, sometimes thinner. So it creates some parts of the lines that are thick and some parts of the line that are thin. And then, so I'm going to call this the flare. And I'm using the brush on its side and I'm just dragging up. Okay. So the top part of the angle is facing down and I'm dragging each stroke up. Also, you create a different effect when you use the brush, the full width of the brush. So when you turn it toward on its side, so all the bristles are going horizontal, it creates a different flare effect. And if you turn the brush where it's on its side, where the bristles are going vertical, it creates a thinner, skinnier line. So I'm alternating that. I'm using the full width sometimes, and then I'm using the not full width, the side sometimes. But each time it's being dragged and it's going vertical. So none of these flare lines are going horizontal or diagonal. They're all going vertical up this string line that I painted first. They're not all the same height. Some are larger, some are smaller. If you look at an image, a photograph of this type of Aurora Borealis, you can kind of see the effect. I mean, it's nature, it's not perfect, it's not in unison. So some of the vertical lines in the images, they're all different. So you kind of want to create that effect by not making it geometric. You want to make it look more natural. Okay, so it's just continuing dipping, double loading the brush in the white and the aqua, and then if you like, you can outline that string again if you want that string line to kind of stand out a bit, or if you kind of painted under the line when you did the flares, you can outline it again. Okay, so that's practice. Now let's put this into real, put it on the canvas, and you can see how it's going to create the different effect because we have the dark background and it's going to create kind of a stunning bright effect. Okay, so let's make sure this brush is pretty dry. Okay, I'm going to dip it in the white, and I'm doing a medium magenta one first. So medium magenta and titanium white. I double loaded it. Okay, so I'm going to paint that string line using the brush on its side, and I dragged it out to let the paint kind of dry out as it went to the top. Okay, so I'm going to do the flare lines, double loading it, drag it out on the palette a little bit. I'm not mixing the colors solid together, so they're not mixed all the way. It just has pink and white on my brush. Okay, so I'm going to start over here in this area, and I'm doing the full width now. So I'm dragging it from the line and I'm dragging it up to let it fade away. I want it to be translucent. I want it to see through. So it's not a solid color. So I'm painting up. All these flare lines are vertical. Nothing's going diagonal, nothing's going horizontal. It's all going vertical up this string line that I painted. Okay, and it's all on the left side. There's nothing really on the right, except I'll show you in a second here. So all of this is on the left side of that line that I painted, but then it's going to flip flop, and on this side they're all going to be on the right. So as I'm loading each time, I'm just grabbing some magenta, I'm grabbing some white. Again, it's not a solid color that I mixed together. It's the colors are kind of doing their own thing as they go from the brush to the canvas. So dragging each line up, starting from the string up, and see what happens when you do all these lines on the right side. Kind of makes it look realistic. And you can do this with different colors too. I chose just the magenta and the aqua to keep the color palette to a minimal, but you can do green, like a bright aqua, not bright aqua, but like a lime green. You can do more of a darker blue. You can do pretty much whatever color you want. But whatever color you're doing, you want to double load it with the white. And the white makes it gives it that bright looking effect. Okay, so the rest of the lights are going to be with the aqua. There's only one magenta in this. Okay, so a different squiggle line, make it look different from the first one. I'm going to do some more horizontal. So the more horizontal you get with your string part, the more flares you get to paint. Because we're painting all the flares on the flatter areas. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing, double load it in the aqua and the white, drag each stroke up. So right there, see what happened? I put too much paint on my brush. So if that happens, kind of wipe your brush off a little bit and then just drag that paint to use it up. So it's kind of important not to put too much paint on your brush because it won't allow the flare to look see-through. And we want it to look see-through because we want it to contrast against that black. We want it to look like an actual light is shining. Okay, so down here, I'm going to kind of do the flares on the opposite side. So these ones, oh, these are also on the left. The top ones were on the left too. So wherever the flatter part of the line is, you would want them to go vertical on top of the line. Okay, you see kind of the variation in white and turquoise, aqua. So some parts of it are lighter because that stroke grabbed more white. Some parts are more aqua. So I'm not really controlling that. It's kind of controlling itself. That's what happens when you double load. It comes out the way it wants to. And then of course I'm altering the side, so using it horizontally and then using it on its side to get variation. And then right here, I don't want to go too far because I don't want to overlap that part. For the next light, I'm going to use the aqua again. And I'm going to start in this same general area and make a different kind of line. I'm going to make that one go pretty high here. And then do your vertical lines. Next, I'm going to do one more light, but it's not going to meet at the same point as the other three. It's going to be kind of a floater. So it's going to be a little one right up here in the corner, and then do the verticals. So that's it for the light part of the painting. And next, you can go ahead and peel that tape off. You'll have a nice crisp horizon line. And then we can use Mars Black, this 3/4 inch flat brush, and we're going to fill in this whole bottom area with the black. And because this is nature, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line. So yes, I am going to paint a little bit above that horizon line. And then on the left and right sides, I'm actually going to curve up just a bit. So it's going to overlap that glow just a little bit. We don't want to get rid of that bright glow that's there. That's there for a reason. We want that glow to show. But I'm just going to paint over it just a little bit to make that line look a little more natural, like a bumpy sort of mountain line. And then I'm going to fill in this whole bottom with the solid Mars Black. And then next I'm going to use the technique of painting these trees. So I have a 10-0 liner and a fan brush. So I'm going to start with the liner. This is that very small round brush. Find the smallest round brush that you have, and it's going to be used to paint the tree trunk. Notice how I watered down that black slightly. This is more effective. Now I'm using Liquitex Basics for this. This is the Mars Black Liquitex Basics. So yours might be thicker or thinner depending, but you want it to be an ink consistency so that it flows nicely, not dripping wet, but not too thick. Okay, so I painted the middle line of the tree. Grab my fan brush. This is a number 2. This is the Royal & Langnickel Zen fan brush number 2. Okay, so I'm going to drag it onto the black so that my fan bristles are all kind of, I guess not spread out, but they all have paint on them. I'm going to start with the brush at the top, and I'm going to use kind of the side of it to start with the little branches. But then as I work my way down, I'm going to use the full width of the fan brush. I'm stamping in this zigzag motion, and I'm forming the shape of the pine tree. Now I have a whole tutorial about how to do this silhouette pine tree, and I'm sure that you have seen it. If you have not seen it, you need to search for it. So go search Google, search my site, look for, in fact, I linked to it on my blog post. Look for how to paint trees, silhouette trees with the fan brush, and it gives you more detailed instructions on what I'm doing. But I'm going to still explain to you what I'm doing anyway. So again, start with the smaller brush to paint your middle tree trunk. Then dip your fan brush in a little bit of water, spread it out. You want that black to be ink consistency. Start with the brush on its side, so you can use just the smaller part of the bristles, or like the side of it, to make a smaller part of the tree. And then as you work your way down, you can use the full width of the brush, stamping it in a zigzag motion to form your tree. This takes quite a bit of practice, but once you calibrate it with the fan brush, once you feel more comfortable with it, it becomes super easy and effective. Okay. And sometimes I like to go back with my liner and kind of tweak it a little bit. So not everything my fan brush could do with this tree. So at the top, I'll add a few more branches at the top. Maybe I'll make the top trunk taller. I'll go in and fill in some areas that look kind of blank. I like to do my trees kind of full and bushy. You can do different kinds of pine trees that don't have the full amount of, I guess, needles, where you can kind of see the sky more through the tree. So it's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to make a different size. Not all these trees are the same size. This one's going to be a smaller one. And then, so I'm alternating between the liner and the fan brush. I have one brush in one hand and the other brush in the other hand. Again, start with the smaller part of the bristles. So hold the fan brush on its side so you can stamp it very lightly to get the thinner part of the tree, and then work your way down and use the full width of the brush to stamp. In my blog post, I mentioned that you can do an animal silhouette. So I had an example of a wolf in the middle of this painting. So leave a gap and go on pixabay.com, pixabay.com. It's what I use sometimes. Actually, no, I use it a lot. But when I'm looking for a silhouette, you can find different silhouettes on there. So type in wolf silhouette, type in deer silhouette, polar bear silhouette, and you'll come across something that you might like. Print it out or adjust the size to get it to be a decent size. You don't want it to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small. You want it to be kind of the focus. I think my wolf was about 3 inches high, 3 to 4 inches high, probably 3 inches. So adjust the size, and then transfer it to the canvas so that you can create a different kind of look to your painting. This demonstration is just showing you the tree line because I decided that I really like the trees, so I'm demonstrating it this way. But there's always options to your painting. I get questions all the time. Can I add this? Can I, how would I do this? Of course, you can, it's your painting. You can do whatever you want to it. The little guidance. If you ever have questions, you can always message me. I love figuring out ideas with everybody. So I am continuing along with these trees. I made the ones in the middle smaller, assuming that they're more further away or just smaller trees. We don't know. They all belong to the same shadow. I'm speeding this video up just a bit to keep this video close to 30 minutes. So you kind of get the gist of this. This is all tree, different size trees, different shaped trees with the fan brush and the round brush. I think I have 3 painting now. I have the flag, the hot air balloons, and now this one, all with the same tree silhouette. So I can't venture away from this tree silhouette skyline. It's kind of addicting. So I'm just going to leave you with me painting the rest of these trees in speed version. And this painting is coming to its conclusion. I hope that you enjoyed watching and learning how to paint the Aurora Borealis, and that you can apply this technique to other paintings when needed. The angle brush certainly did the trick. Can't wait to see your version of the painting. Thanks for watching.